and I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I'm going to head over to Facebook here quick and find this post and share it to a couple of places, and we will get going. I do hope that you are all having a nice Sunday morning. I hope you've had a good week. It's been an interesting energy week. The energy has been a higher frequency than we've had in the last little while, which is nice, except for that in actually a lot of my empaths, that's created a fair amount of anxiety. And so if you are one of those people that have been going through some anxiety this week, my heart absolutely goes out to you. That's definitely been a part of the jam. And I hope that you have some tools for working through anxiety. I'm going to share a few thoughts with you on that today. But I'll tell you what, one thing I know for sure is that anxiety is very individualized. And, while we have some good suggestions for the world, I still feel like you really have to kind of know you and know what works for you. And we know that what works for anxiety sometimes doesn't work others. So there's a little bit of both of those things. However, I am glad to be here with you guys and glad to be able to share a little time here on this lovely Sunday morning. It is gorgeous at my house. It's a nice week at my house, actually, a nice weekend, especially. My daughter, who has been unable to come home because of COVID, finally got to come home. So she's home visiting was supposed to be 4 days, but she managed to swing it into 5. So that's pretty awesome. She surprised us and showed up here about 11:30 on Friday morning. We didn't expect her until late in the evening, so it was really good to have her here. We're having a lot of fun together. She and her siblings are having some time that they have desperately needed, as well as time with her mom and dad. So it's good. I hope that you guys are hanging in there as well. Now, I want to tell you, so I do want to talk a little bit about anxiety today and just some coping thoughts. And I would love it if you are in any of the chat rooms here. If you want to share any of your coping mechanisms with me, I would love to hear what you do when you are feeling a little overdone, spun up. I feel like you could unzip your skin and climb out. You know what I'm talking about. Well, let's talk about a few good news pieces first, because I always like to start there. Lots of good news this week out in the world. A lot of people doing pretty cool things. One man who, during his daily walks, has always been cleaning headstones. And since the quarantine, he couldn't do that, and it's become very obvious. So now he's able to get back out, and on his daily walks, he chooses one headstone in the cemetery that he walks through and cleans it thoroughly. Old headstones, ones that look like they've been very neglected. I thought that was a beautiful thing. In the cemetery where my parents are buried and my baby brother, there's a plot not too far from where they're buried. There's actually no headstone there. There's just a little marker, but it never gets much attention. And people have put these like little statuaries and stuff around, and the grass and the stickers and stuff just grow up around it. And so every Mother's Day weekend, we go and clean those graves so that they're ready for Memorial Day weekend. And we bring our gloves and our bucket, and we clean that grave all the way up as well. It was a young person. He was like 23 when he died. From his last name, it does make me wonder if maybe his family doesn't live in the United States. But that's something that's really important to me, to keep an eye on those headstones and take good care of them. So I thought that was a beautiful piece of good news. And honestly, maybe something that we could all take a little piece out of. If you are, a little weird like I am and you love cemeteries, maybe for your daily walks for a while, consider walking a cemetery, and maybe consider bringing with you a scrub brush and a spray bottle, and maybe do a little work where you see it's needed. I think I'm going to start doing that for the next little bit. My favorite cemeteries aren't in my town, but maybe I'll discover something there that I didn't know I loved. So I thought that was pretty beautiful, and what a cool way to spend your time. In the world of science, there's a new a new contact lens that can measure your blood sugar. So this is something up and coming for diabetics that want to do double duty with contacts and measuring their blood sugar. That's pretty amazing, I think. Just from the blink of an eye, measuring your blood sugar. No more pricking your fingers and having all of that, the pain and bruising on your fingertips. Love it. There is a scuba diving group who has figured out how to make face masks from recycled ocean plastic, and they are going great guns. People are ordering them right and left. What a great way to give back to Mother Earth, right? Okay. Little boy set up a stand. Not a lemonade stand. No, he's much more creative. He set up a joke stand. So you can drive by and from your car, he will tell you a joke just to brighten up your day. Now, how cool is that? I expect to see this kid on Ellen or Jimmy Fallon in the near future when such things are allowed. We got to see it. A few other fun things. Mr. Rogers knew all about being quarantined. It's been too bad that we haven't had Fred Rogers through this period. He would have had a lot of wisdom to share. He would have calmed a lot of people. I suspect he would have done some things for the kids that would have helped them through this period. But he knew all about quarantine. He apparently had a lot of lung trouble when he was a kid. And he was somebody who ended up quarantined quite a bit when he was a child. I thought that was pretty interesting. He lived in a city that was quite polluted. And when he was a kid, particularly in the spring and summer, he had a hard time breathing and had to be quarantined to his bedroom. And that's where his love of puppets and make-believe and the land of make-believe actually started, was a little Mr. Rogers, a little Fred Rogers in quarantine. Interesting, huh? A college student, now I thought this was really sweet. A college student in Manhattan, quarantined to her apartment alone, feeling very lonely and blue, decided to try to connect with the outside world by putting a Post-it note in her window. So she put a Post-it note in her window that said hi, and she noticed the next day that there was a Post-it note across the street in the neighbor's window that said, "Hi, how are you?" And they started spreading notes back and forth every day, having little Post-it note conversations. Then she noticed that the people in that apartment were elderly. She saw them out front getting some sun and realized that they were elderly people and wondered what she could or should do to help them out. So she put a note up asking if they needed food. And they responded that they were okay on food, but she did don gloves and a mask and make them a batch of cookies and sneak them over there to them with over to their porch with a note with her phone number in case they needed any help. And while they're all still in quarantine, both parties feel like this is going to turn into a lovely friendship. Isn't that kind and sweet for both of them? She needed some grandparents right now, obviously, and they needed somebody to care about them. So, how sweet. There is a tea company that is doing something really interesting in Florida. They're a loose leaf tea company. Their business was in big trouble. They decided to provide a new service. They had signs made, big red yard signs that say, "You've been TP'd," with a note with a blank spot that says loves you, so that you can fill that in. And they started taking orders. So you can order for someone to be TP'd. And they will take the sign, put it in someone's yard, write your message on the sign, and attach a bag full of toilet paper and loose leaf tea, which is, I'm sure, lovely. Well, they thought it was just a fun way to spread some love and actually help their business along. And it actually has gone absolutely crazy. They have done more than 1,300 TP packages throughout their city now, and they're barely keeping up with it. So what a creative, innovative way to save their business as well as spread some love. So those were some of the stories I found this morning that I thought were some of the funnest and the sweetest. These are things that I feel like we can definitely benefit from, just from hearing some heartwarming stories. And sometimes they encourage us as well. So I love it. We ordered yard signs like that too, actually, a few weeks ago. And we've been making, with our vinyl cutter, we've been making signs to honor all of the seniors that we know, and sneaking over late at night and putting them in their yards so that we can honor these kids that are graduating soon with very little pomp and circumstance this year. So we thought that's been fun. It's been fun for us to see them posting pictures on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat of the mystery sign that showed up in the night, and they don't know who put it there, and we think it's really fun. Now, I don't think that any of the seniors I know and love watch Unchurch, so I think I'm safe to share that story, but lots of fun. All right. Belle said, I make sure that my tot is napping. Then I take the monitor with me to the car. I shut myself in and yell all my frustration out. Good. That's a great way to deal with some anxiety for sure. I know I've shared this before, but a good friend of mine said once that parenting requires a fair amount of throwing rocks in the river and screaming, which I thought was pretty perfect. Maybe not just parenting, but parenting ourselves and being on this big rock because we live in a wild world, friends, don't we? I love that. Well, here we go. What I wanted to do today is just pull a card to get some inspiration about what we need to talk about. I did want to talk a little about anxiety, but I didn't want that to be the entire Unchurch. I did want to say that when you are dealing with anxiety, it's really important for you to have an action plan in place. When an anxiety attack hits, or when you're feeling very amped up, that's the wrong time to have to create a plan, right? This is one of those things, one of these health concerns that require a little planning in the beginning. So if you've had an anxiety attack or you know what that stuff feels like, this is the time to put a few things in place so that when something like that ramps up, you can move into that self care mode. If you live with somebody else, this is a good time for you to, explain to them what your plan is because sometimes in the moment you will forget. If you don't live with someone else, still reach that plan out to somebody else so that you can reach out to them and say, I think I'm having a panic attack. They can say, okay, let's think about what your tools are. Now, everyone's tools are different. Some of you have some prescriptions, you have some medication from your doctors to help. That's great. Some of you go a more holistic route. That's great too. There's no judgment there, right? For me, when anxiety strikes, I need some physical movement. I usually get out bergamot essential oil, sandalwood, maybe grapefruit. I might diffuse those. I might apply those to my body. Pardon me. I will probably use a little CBD oil and maybe I'll take some rescue remedy. Now, that's my little action plan. It works well for me. It may not work well for you, but my hope for you and my encouragement to you is that you have a plan in place, that you know where your stuff is that you might need, and that somebody else knows your plan too, so they can help you remember it if you need some help. Because that's what we know. When you're feeling amped like that, you might not remember in the moment what helps you the most. The other thought I have on that is to really pay attention to environmental factors. Sometimes panic and anxiety just hit for no freaking reason, you know? Sometimes they just hit. However, sometimes there could be a bit of opportunity for you to evaluate. Maybe you are getting too much caffeine, or maybe there's another environmental trigger, right? Perhaps it is some kind of music or it's some other kind of overstimulation. Perhaps it is some kind of food. Know yourself and evaluate yourself and what's going on with you and share those things with your doctor as well. Kevin said he's been going on long walks, like 12 miles in total. Hello, I can honor that and not come with you. But good job. That sounds amazing. And he's back in therapy. You know what? Good for you. And right now is this is the time when I think a lot of people who maybe haven't been in therapy before may consider turning to that. It's a good time for it. This is a good time to recognize what our needs are. It's also a good time to recognize what trauma looks like and feels like. And if you are experiencing some trauma, you might want to reach out for some therapy to get through this time. I think that's brilliant. Because what we know is when you take great care of yourself, when you seek the help that you need from whatever community resonates with you the most and helps the most, or maybe a little snippet of many of them, life is better. You don't have to suffer in silence. You do not have to be in misery. There are options for you. And I think it's really important to remember that there are options for you. I think that we're a little bad for suffering in silence, trying to wait something out. Maybe we're judging ourselves a little too harshly. Maybe we just think that, if we wait a little longer, it will just disappear. And you know what? Sometimes it does. But if it doesn't, don't suffer in silence. Get the help that you need. Reach out to your doctor, reach out to a therapist, reach out to your homeopath. Whoever you see and trust, whatever works for you is perfect, but you're not alone. And you don't have to go through things like anxiety and depression and other mental health issues alone. And you need to remember that even though perhaps some of you have not had challenges like this in the past, we're seeing a huge uptick of that right now because, the world's gone haywire. So don't worry about it. Get the help that you need. Reach out to somebody. Take care of yourself. I just can't stress it enough. We live in a weird society that tells us to take care of ourselves, but then out of the other side of its mouth, really doesn't. So it's on you. Nobody's going to do that for you, but it's good. All right. I'm going to just pull a card out of the Transformation Tarot here. I thought that would give me something to focus on. I'm just going to ask, the question I'm asking is, what do we need to focus on for the next week? What's something we need to bear in mind or remember? All right. Oh, I think we can all get our heads around this. This is the Master of Discs. The card is Gracious Abundance. Gracious Abundance. So, what does gracious abundance mean for all of us? Well, I feel like it means just that this is a week that I'm going to go down a few different roads. This is the week that you need to allow yourself to receive with grace. If someone else is trying to do something for you, let them. Don't box anybody out. You guys are all such damn good givers and you're terrible receivers. Work on that. Let someone else be the giver. Allow someone to give, and you find a way to receive with grace. On the flip side, one of the best ways to grow your own abundance is to spread abundance to somebody else. And so perhaps this is a good week to engage in a bit of service, to share something that you have, to give somebody else a leg up. What it might look like a small gift to you is something that could be an enormous gift to somebody else. So think about that. It doesn't have to be money, but it could be service. It could be kindness. It could be time. Time is one of the biggest gifts we can give people. But think about what you're giving this week, because that's a great way to bring back that abundance. Not to mention that we are building up to a full moon this week. We're in a really good time of manifesting and creating abundance in our lives anyway. So I think that all dovetails in really nicely. The other part of that is gratitude. Really taking a look at what you are already receiving, what you already have in your life, especially during a period like we've been through. Taking a little time to reflect on the gratitude that you have, the gifts in your life, the things that have gone right for you, the things that you're so grateful were already in place before quarantine happened. Really taking a look at and having some adequate gratitude for what you have in your life is a really great way to create more. It's also just a great way to lift your own vibe when you can be grateful. An attitude of gratitude is an incredible way to live. And I think in some ways we're good at that. We're good at saying thank you. We're good at when someone does something to our face. We're great at saying thank you to the barista. We're great at saying thank you to the bank teller. We're good at saying thank you at the grocery store for the most part. Things like that, that's easy gratitude, right? And of course you should do that. That's manners, right? That's basic manners. But what about gratitude for yourself? What about gratitude for the universe? What about gratitude for people around you? Gratitude for people in your home? Gratitude for people who care about you, who maybe put something in social media that resonates with you? Or gratitude for people that are in your distant past, whether it was for hard lessons learned or it was for, the beautiful gifts that they bestowed upon you in your life. Gratitude's a good way to go. Because what I know is when it comes to the law of attraction, when we create an attitude of gratitude, we are telling the universe that we would like more of the same, that we like that we want that we're good with that. So consider that this week. So I think that card, this Gracious Abundance card, we can go a few different ways with it, but I would love to see you go to a place of gratitude, go to a place of grateful and gracious receiving, and go to a place of creating some service as well. So, those are pretty fun marching orders for this week. I think those are all really good ways to consider spending our time. On a global scale, also feel like that card is a good indicator that the world economy is looking a little better this week as well. Now, you guys know me, I'm going to choose lives over money, lives over the economy any day of the week. But we also know that at some point things have to start up and we have to start finding a new normal. And I feel like we're really in the midst of that in many of our states and municipalities. And that's a good thing. We're going to be smart, we're going to be safe, and we're going to be okay, right? Well, I have always promised that Unchurch would be about 20 minutes, and we are 21 minutes in. So I'm going to let us go here. I want to thank you guys for joining me. If you'd like to learn more about me, just head over to katie-weaver.com, and it's all there. Have a great Sunday and a wonderful week, you guys. Take care.